Encuentra un eco amplificado, donde tus derechos salen a la luz y disipan el miedo, donde tus aportes a la sociedad se evidencian, donde se reconoce que tus luchas reivindican derechos para todas y todos. Radio Jornalera destaca a la gente humilde que pelea por sus derechos a pesar de sus circunstancias de despojo y marginación. Eleva a los individuos y sus luchas y muestra cómo la clase trabajadora y humilde puede ser agente de cambio cuando se organiza, cuando se defiende y cuando tiene una lectura correcta de su propia realidad. Radio Jornalera provee el espacio para aprender de los invitados e invitadas sobre sus vidas, lo que les motiva a seguir adelante, sus virtudes y desafíos y hasta su música y poesía favorita. Radio Jornalera recalca el trabajo de activistas, organizadores, educadores y algunas celebridades, sus causas, sus campañas, sus estrategias, sus tácticas y los reveses más duros en el perenne quehacer de formar líderes para hacer el mundo más justo, más humano, más inclusivo. Para cambiar el mundo, primero hay que conocer a las personas que sobreviven las injusticias y políticas públicas groseras. Hay que apoyar y solidarizarse con sus luchas, porque desde abajo se defiende a todo mundo. Radio Jornalera, donde los anhelos y el sentir del pueblo trabajador cobran vida.
Hello, everyone. My name is Archange Antoine.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ana Paola Pazmiño.
And I'm Charlene Walker.
And we are the Black Brown Movement, and we are so happy to be here with you all today. Welcome to the Black Brown Movement. Today we'll be interviewing Dr. Patricia Campos-Medina, who is a candidate for U.S. Senate of New Jersey. My name is Archange Antoine.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ana Paola Pazmiño.
Hello, and I am Charlene Walker. So, our first question today, tell us about your story and how it pushes you into public service and advocacy.
I want to start by saying that I am immigrant woman who suffered family separation. My parents left at the beginning of the brutal civil war in El Salvador, 79, 80, my older brother, 81. So I was left behind to grow with my grandmother, Maria. And I experienced war and the civil war and the brutality of it. Due to a broken immigration system, it took us 8 years to reunite as a family here in the United States. And that marked me, family separation. It's not any different than what immigrants suffer today. A lot of immigrants are still separated. And the issue of refugee policy from Central America has never been resolved, or for Latin America. So that informs me who I am and how I approach entering this race for the United States Senate. Also, I came to the United States at 14 years old, learned English as a second language. My parents lived in an affordable housing unit. I came to Virginia, and but we were part of a good school system, so I went to public schools. Was able to, with the support of my parents, commit to an education, because they always told us education is something nobody can take away from you. And that's, I believe, a lot of working class families, Black, brown, that education is the tool to succeed. So I went to college and I dedicated myself to fighting for people like my parents, who were low wage workers. They were undocumented for 10 years, and my mother was a housekeeper, hotel housekeeper, and my father a janitor, work construction in between. My mother cleaned houses on the weekends. And that's my story. So when I grew up, asking questions about why my parents don't have health insurance, why do we have to move so often? Because they increase the rent, and then you have to go find a new apartment. So those things have stuck with me, and I felt like in the richest country in the world, if you're working hard, you should have a life of dignity. And that's what I dedicated my life to doing as a labor leader and as a labor champion.
Thank you so much for sharing your powerful story. I would really like to understand how this informs your platform for the Senate, and why should people vote for you?
Our politics is lacking empathy, humanity, understanding of people's real struggles. And I said my platform is not based on a political poll. It's not based on something somebody told me to say because it will poll well. It is based on 30 years of work and my own lived experience. Um, if you want to have politics that work for working people and a government that gets back to actually solving people's problems, you have to get people like me, like all of you, working people, people from their communities elected into office. We are letting politicians be bought by Wall Street, by the millionaire class, by those with money, and therefore they are, their commitment is to those who fund their campaigns, not to the people who where they come from, the communities that they come from. So for me, I tell people, do you want a fighter for working people? Do you want somebody who has been advocating for with unions, with the social justice movement, with the economic justice movement for racial equality, or do you want somebody who is told what polls well? And so I have a background, and I have built coalitions. I come from the labor movement. I always say to move forward, like the 5 or 15, to move forward protections for workers during the pandemic, to move forward pay family leave. We had to build coalitions with unions, with the business community, and then mobilize from the ground up. That's how we got it done. Not because New Jersey is a progressive state, because you know that we all know that we have to push our elected officials to do the right thing for working people. So you want somebody who knows how to build coalitions, who knows that you have to build power from the ground up, and then you have to push the business interest to actually do the right thing. You need someone like me in the United States Senate. And that's what I'm trying to change the politics of New Jersey. I launched this campaign without the support of the party. I launched this campaign with understanding that I always been the same person. I always advocated for progressive issues, even when it wasn't popular to do so. Remember, we were advocating to close the ICE facilities, and nobody wanted to do it because it's dangerous to say those things, but it's the right thing to do. And at the end of the line, the right thing always rises up because we do it from a place of love, and we do it from a place of understanding people's humanity. So that's what I ask people to vote for me. That you will always know where I stand because I always done the same things. Fight for working people, fight for the dignity of my immigrants, fight for the dignity of Black and brown people, and fight for the future of young Black men, or the future of young Latino men who also need to have opportunity in good jobs, in good, that's what I'll be doing in the United States Senate.
Thank you. This is great. Great conversation. I think because we are in need of having real conversations with people who are going to be representing us as a community. So I really want to ask and see, Patricia, what can you tell us about how you will be sending a message, and what will you be doing for those Black voters that are looking and watching to see what is going on in this election, but also how has this been part of you're promoting for more equality, for more equity within the system that's very anti-Black? What could you say about that for our Black voters who are watching you right now?
I have been talking, visiting Black churches, Black organizations in places like Jersey City, like Patterson, like Newark. I have been working with the people that I worked with for the last 20 years here in New Jersey to build power for working people. The unions that I come from, SEIU, Unite Here, Workers United, the members are Black and brown people who are, fighting for dignity on the job. Those are the people I've been talking to. I have visited Jersey City and Patterson, oh my God, over 20 times. I've been to over 300 events in northern New Jersey. And I will tell you, I've been to every forum that the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice has held, the ACLU, the Black churches have held, because it is important to hear what Black voters want, need, what Latino voters want, need. And look who hasn't shown up to those events, because it makes a difference who shows up and who listens. and I have been showing up and listening. You cannot win elections in New Jersey if you do not pay attention to the Black vote and to Black women concerns. You do not pay attention to the Latino vote and the Latino community concerns and the urban vote. And the way people win that don't come talk to our leaders is that they count on Latinos and Black people not voting. And that is why I tell Black and brown people and urban voters, they win when we don't vote. And this is a primary election. There's primary voters that always vote are suburban voters. So it is an imperative upon us to actually educate Black and brown voters that the power in New Jersey to elect people that look like you to go to the United States Senate or to go to the Assembly is that you have to show up on the primary day. Now, we have a lot of more work to do to actually register more Black and brown voters, educate them about the importance of the primaries. But at the end of the day, we have to turn them out and get them excited about candidates. Black and brown voters get excited about Black and brown candidates. So we also need to run, and that's what I'm running.
Mhm. Very good. And thank you, because you included the Latinos, the brown people, right? Because this is the Black and brown movement that we are here messaging to. The only thing I would say is, could you tell us a little bit more about what will the message be for the Latino and the brown community that's more related to like immigration, right? The wage theft, because you talked that you are a worker leader, right? What could those messages look like for a lot of and I know this is in English, but we're going to put subtitles so the Latino community who speaks Spanish can also get access to this information.
Well, I think that Black and brown people in our urban centers, we live together. We face the same problems with our policing, with criminal justice reform. Now, ICE is an extension of the criminalization of poor people. We're jailing immigrants rather than giving them papers and allowing them to work. So it's an extension of the criminal justice system and how it is dehumanizing young workers and young Black and brown people. So we have to start thinking that there's two different messages. There's one message, and it's how do we create economic opportunity for our communities, and how do we invest in our young people and in our families and in young women so that they can build the future that they need. So in that sense, fighting for better labor laws and for better enforcement of wage theft is actually stealing people's money. I mean, it's not like a thing that a bad employer does. That employer is stealing people's wealth by not paying them for the work they have created. So we have to more strongly enforce that. Now, we have to engage in more police reform, right? So that there is accountability for policing in our communities that is not just punitive, but it is actually more about creating safety net and coalition with our local community. We have to do bail reform, impacts a lot of our poor working people. So all those things are connected. All our urban issues, not all our urban issues are Latino issues. Our urban issues are Black issues, and it should be New Jersey issues because we're the engine, the economic engine of New Jersey. So to me, we have to have leaders who understand that you shouldn't have a message for Black people and a message for Latino people and a message for white suburban voters. We're all New Jersey, and if our cities don't prosper, New Jersey doesn't prosper. So, wage theft at the top priority of enforcement, investment in job and opportunities, because that's how communities go forward. So, more making sure that we have living wage jobs. We're making sure that that jobs in the care economy are good jobs for women, nursing, or if you work in home care, that you actually get a minimum wage. That's what the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights was so important. And we work on it together because that is at the bottom of the care economy. But a lot of our Black and brown women are actually doing home care, and they depend on Medicaid payments to be able to, to have a good wage. So as a United States Senator, I said we have to work to improve Medicaid payments for our home care industry. We have to make sure that we invest and protect Medicaid and Medicare, Social Security, and that we create good jobs with good salaries. Because what working people want is a good job so that they can build their economic future.
Excellent points that you're making. Dr. Patricia Campos-Medina, let us talk. You made some good points about the Black and Brown community. Let us talk a little about what is your message to all people of New Jersey, especially people who are trying to make their decisions on what candidates they're going to vote for, or said this election, I don't know if I'm going to vote. So what is your message to folks like that?
We are in a critical moment in the United States about whether we're going to have a democracy or not.
Mm,
Trump was indicted, 31 counts of criminal activity, and yet there's people who want him to be president.
mm,
Now, I know that we're in this position of mejor mejor el diablo que conozco que el que no conozco, better
the devil you know, the devil you
I
don't.
don't know.
Yes.
Pero there's a difference between a Donald Trump presidency and a Biden presidency. We remember when Donald Trump even started becoming a candidate, he went after shithole countries in Latin America.
Mhm.
He called Mexicans cockroaches, and he insulted all of us, basically, threw towels to Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico when they were devastated by a storm. That disregard and how he talks about black people as, I always said when he says, "Oh, my black person, my black," as like total disregard about the importance of the black vote.
Mhm.
To this. So that total disregard to me has created this sense that they don't need us to keep this democracy forward. The Democratic Party on the other side, it has stopped spending and engaging black and brown voters. So therefore, we had ceded the working class vote to the Republicans. They feel disenchanted. Democrats are aligning themselves with Wall Street. You know, we have to go and fight and return the corporate tax on corporate America. We have to actually impose a wealth tax on billionaires so that we can get resources. We actually have to go fight for those things. We can't have a candidate like Andy Kim, who his main selling point to voters is, I will get along with Republicans. Now, I know all about cutting deals and making sure that we get to a negotiation point, but that's not getting along. What we working people want is somebody to fight for them, to fight for Medicare for all, to fight for good jobs, to fight for unions, to fight for peace, to actually say arming, giving our taxpayers money to fund war, a genocidal war, it is wrong. They want to hear those things. Otherwise, they won't get excited because it's a candidate of the same candidate selling the same Kool-Aid. So to me, what we need to do is actually have more elected officials with principles. Now, you might not get the $1 million donors, from Wall Street, but Bernie Sanders showed us that you can actually run a campaign on small donations if you have the right message and people want to hear. Obama did it. We can have an argument about whether Obama moved the country forward or not, but we had that idea as a grassroots movement, and we who are grassroots people know how to do grassroots movement. So I just invite everybody who wants to see a different type of politics to not sit back and say my vote doesn't matter. There's millions and millions of people who don't have the right to vote. That includes undocumented workers and people who are leaving our judicial system who are justice impacted. And they're also discouraged from participation. They're counting on us not voting for the politics of the Wall Street to continue. So if we want to change the politics, we need to vote. Working people need to vote.
Passionate response, and thank you for that. I would say, and the final question is, you've been doing this work for a long time in the business of human dignity and support. What is your vision for the future of New Jersey and this country?
My vision is that we get to a politics that focuses on solving issues for people, on building a government that solves big problems, or building a government that focuses on what's the future of this country.
Mm.
We are in a politics of how can I win today? How can I get reelected? What do I need to say to provoke a response or the media to follow me? We are not. We are lacking visionary political leaders and political statements that says this is a country that will be at the top of our economic prosperity with economic um, equity. Now, I don't use equality because equality. We need equity. That means that we have access. Different people at different points in their life have access to different investment. Education is a key. So my vision is that we get to a point that we start worrying about the next election and we start worrying about how we're going to solve big problems like New Jersey infrastructure. We don't have funding for New Jersey Transit. We don't have funding to invest in a rail system, to fix our roads. And we are putting off those big problems rather than thinking about how we're going to invest on public transportation, because that's the only way we're going to protect our planet, right? Because we cannot put more cars on the road. Now, how are we going to invest in green energy? How are we going to protect our cities from flooding? Because that's a big infrastructure projects. China did it. China has built great infrastructure projects, and we cannot do it in the United States. Europe has done it, and we cannot do it in the United States. We cannot do it because our politics are being driven by the billionaires, by Jeff Bezos, who would rather build a rocket to space with his own money and take his friends to the space than actually pay warehouse workers in the warehouse a living wage. That's the level of economic disparity that we have. And until we have a government that is looking out for regular people and not protecting billionaires, we will not get to a place that we need to tax Jeff Bezos. We need to put a corporate tax on corporations like Walmart and get that money and invest it in big projects like public transportation and our rail system. That's what the conversations that we need to have.
Dr. Patricia Campos Medina, we thank you so much for joining us today in the Black Brown Movement, and we wish you great luck.
Thank you. I say luck and votes. I need I need my black and brown voters to come out and vote because they win if we don't vote. They win if we stay silent. And what I'm trying to do is give voters in our urban sectors a candidate that they know will fight for them. So they need to get excited. I wanna continue to be the voice because I cannot do this on my own. We will have to continue building a grassroots movement so that I can go to Washington D.C. and build power for working people. So the savior is us. Nobody else can save us. I am just trying to be the candidate on the ballot. Nobody wanted on the ballot. They didn't want a woman of color on the ballot. They didn't want a Latina voice on the ballot. I put myself on the ballot with the support of hundreds of people who are giving me small donations. You want to keep me on the ballot? You want to have a United States senator that comes from the city? I mean, I worked in Newark. I organized workers everywhere in New Jersey. If you want a candidate like that, you have to vote on June 4th, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Please tell all your friends. You have to come out and vote. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. All right. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming on and watching us. We are today here. Welcome to the Brown and Black Movement. We're here today with U.S. Senate candidate Larry Ham.
So let's get started. Tell us about your story and how it pushes you towards public service and advocacy.
Well, I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, product of Newark Public Schools. I came of age as a political activist in 1967 in the midst of the Newark Rebellion. Newspapers refer to it as the Newark riots, but people now refer to it as a rebellion because they knew it was a collective response to oppression. That was the beginning of my slow but steady political awakening. And then as a high school senior, I organized a walkout and a march and a sit-in uh, at the Gateway Hotel in Newark, New Jersey, as a protest for better education in Newark public schools. And then at the age of 17, literally a couple of months after that event, I was appointed as a member of the Newark Board of Education on July 1st, 1971, making me the youngest school board member in the history of the country. I think I still hold that record. And from there, I met Amiri Baraka, the great poet, playwright, activist, the father of the current mayor of Newark, but the father has since joined the ancestors. And I guess you could say that was the beginning of my political radicalization. And through Amiri Baraka, I became acquainted with the speeches and writings of Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and many of the great African leaders and international anti-colonial, anti-imperialist freedom fighters. And from there, after my school board period, I returned to Princeton University, where I graduated in 1978. But while at Princeton, I was a leader of the anti-apartheid student movement at Princeton University, where we got Princeton to divest from several corporations doing business with South Africa. I returned to Newark in 1980, and in 1982 founded the People's Organization for Progress, which is a grassroots organization working for racial, social, economic justice and peace. In 1972, I was the youngest elected delegate to the National Black Political Convention in Gary, Indiana. In the 1980s, I supported Jesse Jackson's campaigns for president in 1984. 1988, I was the state co-chair of the Jackson campaign in New Jersey and a delegate to the Democratic National Convention in Atlanta. In 2016, I supported Bernie Sanders' candidacy for president, and I was a delegate for Bernie Sanders to the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia. And then in 2020, I was state chair of Bernie's campaign in New Jersey and also ran for United States Senate in 2020. And here we are in 2024, and this is my second attempt at running for the United States Senate.
How does your story inform your Senate platform? And also, why should people come out to vote for you?
Well, I think people would want to vote for me because more than any other candidate, I have consistently fought for the issues that affect working people, poor people, middle class, Black and brown people. I've consistently fought for 53 years. There's almost a straight line from my high school, my beginnings as a high school student activist to where I sit today. And I'm living the same kind of life as most of the people that I would represent in New Jersey. I mean, I come from a poor and working class background. I'm still a poor and working class person. But you know, I have been fighting on all these issues of better housing, better health care, quality education, jobs at a living wage, reparations for slavery, uh, stop police brutality, stop the wars abroad and spend that money at home. These are themes that have echoed across my life. For instance, right now, I support an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza. But the issue of Palestinians is not new to me. I'm not taking that issue up because I'm running for the candidate. I mean, when we were at the National Black Political Convention in Gary, Indiana in 1972, I voted for self-determination for the Palestinian people. When Jesse Jackson ran for president, part of his platform was to negotiate with the Palestinian people and support self-determination and establish a real independent sovereign Palestinian state, et cetera, et cetera. All of these issues are issues that I've been fighting around for a lifetime. And now I want to take that fight onto the Senate floor because I don't think we have people there who are fighting as hard as we would want them to. You know, people are suffering in this country. And I think everybody, well, I won't say everybody, I'll say most people realize that we need a change. The question is, how do we get from A to B? How do we get from what we want in our hearts and in our minds to actually making that a reality? So one step, one way is to elect people who are from us to, you know, because a lot of times we're electing people who might as well be living on another planet. Their lives are so different from our own. They don't know what it is to work 2 jobs, to struggle, to not make ends meet. They don't know what it is to get evicted or to lose your home to foreclosure. You know, they don't know what it is to worry about the safety of your child when you're sending your child to school every day. They don't know what it is to be laid off or to be on unemployment for 18 months. These are all things that I have either experienced directly or I have worked with peer people that have experienced these things and fought to try to help them deal with these issues. So we have to send people there who will represent our interests and not the interests of the most rich and the most powerful.
Thank you. And this is a great conversation that we want to continue and see how the people are who are watching us are getting informed by everything that you're saying. So my question would be, you mentioned the brown and black people of our community.
Mhm.
What is your message to those black and brown voters who are dealing with um, a lot of racial issues, a lot of immigration issues, a lot of wage theft? What can you
Oh my
do
goodness.
what is your message to them so that their vote is going to be part of your election?
Well, my first message is an old one and not an original one. Organize, organize, organize. The fundamental, the greatest weapon we have to deal with all of these issues is our collective organization and working together to fight the powers that be. You know, that has to happen before elections, during elections, and after this election is over. We know that elections in and of themselves don't immediately resolve these issues. So we have to keep organizing and keep fighting for a better life. Uh, and the other thing I would say to people is to come out and vote. And I want to say this, I know people are discouraged and fed up with the electoral system. I know that they are tired of politicians coming to them, making all these promises and, you know, things don't seem to change. In fact, in some ways, things seem to get worse. But I'm telling you right now, it's very important for people to come out and vote because right now, as I sit here and you sit there and you sit here, there are people who literally want to establish a dictatorship in this country. We have a fascist movement on the move in the United States of America. And it's hard for some people to see because they don't look like they got on Nazi uniforms and jack boots that you know they dressed like Adolf Hitler, but they are just as fascist as Hitler was. In fact, the parallels of what is happening in the United States today to what was happening in the United States in 1933 and 1936, the parallels are striking. You know, almost to the words that people are using. I mean, the other day we heard Donald Trump talking about we have to establish a great Reich in the United States of America. I mean, imagine if a black or brown politician had said something like that.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to get through the street. They'd have military posts set up right now. We'd be in jail right now if we said something like that. But sometimes they say the quiet part out loud. And if you're really listening, you better take these people seriously because they're not playing. They have a plan right now called Project 2025. They got two of them, actually. One is called Project 2025. The other one is called Agenda 47, where they literally lay out what their policy objectives are going to be during a second Trump administration. And let me tell you, those policies are antithetical to the lives of Black and brown people in the United States of America. And it is imperative that we unite, Black and brown people unite, and unite with our allies in the white community to stop them. But not only to stop them, because at one level, even people who are in the system agree that they'll say, well, Trump needs to be stopped. Yes, we all agree on that. But we not only need to stop Trump, we need to stop a whole movement because remember, 76 million people voted for him in the last election. And then secondly, we got to change the conditions that gave rise to this movement, you know, and if we don't change the material reality that gave rise to this movement, we'll go through this all over again like a bad dream, you know, it keeps happening, you know, over and over. Like the other night, I was speaking to some senior citizens in Pompton Plains. I said, how many times do we have to go through this? Look, the Korean War still hasn't been resolved. We're 60 years later, and we have U.S. military troops on the border between South. It was called, I think, an armistice, which is not an end to the war. The Korean War has actually officially not ended. Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. I mean, how many times, and now this war in Gaza, how many times do we have to go through this? And remember, where did World War I start? In Europe. Where did World War II start? In Europe. What are we doing right now? We are funding a war in Europe. And just yesterday, the United States government, the president, okayed the use of offensive weapons in that war, weapons that could fire into Russia. So we're churning a war, we're churning genocide in Gaza, we're churning war in Europe. And at some point, we got to make a break, or because if we don't, we are facing an existential crisis right now. I mean, what more can I say? I wish I could say it in Spanish,
yeah.
but I
Don't worry, we're gonna have some subtitles,
All
but
right.
because this message, we also were thinking, especially for organizing, like you said, organize.
Mhm.
As organizers, we need to get to the community that hasn't been here for the history of all of what you're
Right.
saying, right? They don't
Right.
know that background. They're just
Right.
thinking about what's happening now in their lives, how they have to work 2 jobs, how they don't have enough food. They have to visit the food pantries and visit
Yes.
organizations. But what would you
Imagine
say?
this, the richest country in the world, and we have to have food pantries. I was at a college. I'm not going to say what college because I don't want to cast aspersions. I was at a college where they have a food pantry. Like the students don't have enough money to eat. And they're trying to go to college. This is in the United States of America, the richest country in the world. You know, and I was with Archangel. We were in Princeton like a few weeks ago. It was on May Day, right? We were marching for May Day. And, you know, if there was ever a time that working people needed to march, it's now. I mean, you raise the question. Look at so many workers are facing wage theft. Imagine that. We are very concerned about, and crime in our community is real, and we should be concerned about it, and we want an end to the crime. But people don't know the biggest crime in America, the biggest crimes in America are white collar crimes. Billions of dollars are stolen every year. I mean, of course, we don't want people breaking into our houses and stealing our cars and stuff like that, right? You know, we want that to stop. But there are bigger crimes. Imagine that employers not paying people the overtime, or not even the overtime, employers not paying people the wage that they are legally obligated to pay them. Imagine people, we're here in the richest country in the world. The federal minimum wage is $7.25. You can't rent a 1-bedroom apartment anywhere in the United States on a wage of $7.25 an hour. You know what we have in America? We have what's called a criminogenic society. We have a society that is so structured that it will be expected that people will commit crimes because they have to in order to survive. I mean, a good example would be South Africa. When South Africa was under apartheid, everybody had to have a pass, like to get from one place to another, not to another country, just get from where you had to have. And if you didn't have your pass, you would go to jail. So imagine this. You know that if you pass such a law, there's going to be a day when somebody forgets their pass, like we forget our driver's license, right? Or we forget that. So before it's all over, 80% of the adult population is criminalized because 80% of the adult population has been charged with violation of the pass law. That's the kind of society that we live in. If we don't pay enough money, if we don't pay workers enough money to eat, they're going to find a way to eat. Whether it's a legal way or an illegal way, they're going to find a way to eat. So workers have to organize. They have to unionize. Look at our union situation. At the end of World War II, United States, 49% of the labor force was unionized. Today, only 11% of the labor force is organized. That's crazy. All the countries in the world which have a higher standard of living than the United States, we think just because this is the richest country, it has the highest standard of living. That is not true.
Mhm.
It neither has the highest standard of living, nor does it have the highest rate of what they call happiness. They actually have a measurement for how happy people are with their country. Yeah. We're way
sad.
down. We're sad. That's right. We're way down on the list.
Mhm.
So we have to organize for better wages, better working conditions.
So, Larry, thank you so much for that. What is your message to all the people of New Jersey who are voters, and specifically looking at people who are still on the fence about who they're going to vote for, or people who are saying, I'm totally checked out. I don't even know if I'm going to participate in this election?
Well, as I said before, I understand people's frustration, but people really need to vote. First of all, I would urge people to just Google the names of the people who are running for office and look at their platforms. Whether you use Google, whatever your search engine is. I don't want to be advertising for Google. Whatever your search engine is, just look up the candidates. You got a phone right here. You don't have to go sit at home. Just look up their names and see who's been fighting for you. Like you can Google Larry Ham and you can find articles for the last, I don't know how many years. You can Google the other people that are running and see what their record is, and look at their records. Like if you go to my webpage, you can see my platform. Every candidate has a webpage. So go to the candidate's webpage and see what their platforms are and see what their positions are, on the issues. So people should research the background of the candidates, but people got to come out and vote. Everybody that's registered got to vote. Vote in the primary and vote in the general election. The forces that are arrayed against us, who don't want us to have a better life, they are depending on us staying home. Because if we stay home, they win. Remember, there's going to be an election, regardless of how you feel.
Yeah.
There's going to be an election, regardless of whether you turned off, turned on, you love them, you hate them. There's going to be an election, and somebody's going to win that election. And the person that wins that election is going to rule your life. You think because they're not sitting in your house, they're not ruling your life. They're going to pass policies and laws in the Congress that are going to affect the way you live. And I'm telling you, you're not going to like it. I mean, look, you got somebody running for president right now that was just convicted He's convicted. If we had been charged with 34 felonies, I'd be in jail right now. You'd be in jail and you'd be in jail. This guy is running around charged with felony, found guilty, but what's his program? What's his program for immigrant workers who are undocumented? He wants to deport them. He wants to set up concentration camps. I mean, they're saying it. Look at that. Just Google the New York Times. You don't want to believe Larry Ham. Google Project 2025, New York Times, and read what the Times wrote. Read what the Washington Post wrote. They want to round people up. They want to deport people. They want to set up detention camps. They want to militarize the border. I mean, it's going to be a nightmare, but it's a nightmare now. I don't want to be like what these people say. It's going to be a nightmare. It's a nightmare now too, right?
So, Larry, the final question. You've been doing this work for a while, trailblazing. You've been doing this work for a while, Larry. You've been trailblazing the state of New Jersey. What is your vision for New Jersey, and what's your vision for this country?
Well, I want America to be a country in which all of us that live here can live here together in peace and prosper. Prosperity should not be just for a handful of people. Prosperity should be for all of us, and we can do that. The poverty that we have in this country, the low wages that workers have, the problems that we have with affordable housing and affordable health care, these are problems that were created because of laws and policies. We got to change those laws and policies. Like right now, this is the richest country in the world. We should have universal health care. Nobody should have to worry about going to see a doctor, a dentist, paying bills. There are other countries right now less wealthy than the United States where they have universal health care. We could take Medicare, expand it to the entire population. We should not just have a minimum wage in the United States. We should have a living wage. Like, I'm for raising the minimum wage, from $7 to $17 an hour. I would put in a bill to do it immediately without it being phased in. But $17 an hour ain't paradise. Talk to somebody that makes $17 an hour. They're struggling. We need a living wage in the United States. You work 40 hours a week. You should make enough money to support yourself, your family, pay your bills. I mean, I'm 70 years old. I grew up at a time in this country when people they graduated from high school. Some of them didn't even graduate from high school, but they could get a job at GM in Linden, at Ford in Mahwah. They could make enough money to buy a home, buy a car, and send their kids to college without a college degree. We got 2 college degrees, 3 college degrees, and some of us still can't do that. That's wrong. And we have to change that. We have this whole thing of separating children at the border. That's an abomination. That's crazy. There's still children that haven't been found. The children that they tore away from their families, 4 years ago. Some of these children still haven't been found. And people don't know that there is a human trafficking industry in this country, an illegal human trafficking. And my fear is that many of these children, may have been put into that mess, and putting barbed wire in the water so people kill themselves, arresting people for trying to give food and water to people who are dying in the desert. What are we doing here? We can change that. We should have a society where we can all live together in peace and we can all prosper.
All right. So this has been a great conversation with everyone here. Thank you, Larry. Thank you for coming on and sharing with the community. We are here with the Black Brown Movement, and we'll see you soon.